taking a bit of a departure in the Morning Glory Project today because we're tilting more toward a political angle than I usually do. Although lots of our guests have political intentions and their decisions and life choices are made in a political context, and we always hear advocate for the rights of people to make choices. The topic of abortion specifically is one that I know has overtly political aspects to it. And that's not usually where we go, but this one we just have to. I am so moved by Jessica Pritchett's story that you're about to hear. And I also want it said that in the context of what has gone on recently with Supreme Court decisions, the tragic choice that Jessica was forced to make would not even be available to her in many states today. And boy, it just doesn't get more personal than that. So you'll indulge me, I hope, as we discuss a very sensitive matter of pregnancy, of medical privacy, of body autonomy, body sovereignty. And I hope that you'll listen to Jessica's story with an open heart. Thanks for listening to the Morning Glory Project. Today, I welcome to the microphone at the Morning Glory Project, Jessica Pritchett. Now, Jessica and I encountered each other in an unusual way for me in the Morning Glory Project, and often I get referrals from friends or from publicists or authors that I know. But in Jessica's case, I read her story on Facebook, and it was such a personal and such a heartfelt post that I reached out to her because I just simply had to talk to her. Whether or not she was interested in becoming part of the Morning Glory Project, I was just interested in talking to her. And so, Jessica, I reached out to you because your story was so personal. And in light of what's happened in our country, we're recording this in July of 2022. In light of what's happened recently with Supreme Court rulings and the backward turning of the clock in terms of women's bodily autonomy rights and medical privacy rights, I just felt compelled to reach out to you and to have you tell me a bit about your story. So thank you so much for coming to the Morning Glory
Thank you for
Project.
having
And
me.
so tell me a little bit about your life before 2018. By the way, Jessica and her family are sort of like the dream family of America, right? Jessica, you're a fourth grade teacher. Your husband
Yeah.
serves in the U.S.
Um,
Army.
mhm.
Is he a career fellow that he's been
Yes,
there for some time?
yes,
So
yes,
you're a
ma'am.
military family, a military wife, and serving kids, teaching fourth grade. So you're sort of America's dream family
Oh,
in lots of ways. So
thank
tell me
you.
about your life around 2018. Where were you, and right before that?
Um, well, we were struggling to get pregnant for a very long time. We actually found out before we were married that my clock was ticking, is what my doctor said, and he said we needed to try immediately for um,
Was
a
that because
child.
of age?
No, it's because I have stage 4 endometriosis and adenomyosis, and I've had
Okay.
several surgeries. And so he just said that my eggs were, not going to last very much longer. And
So
he
you
said
started
that,
out knowing that getting pregnant and having a family might be a big challenge for you.
yes, yes. And we tried for 5 years on our own. And it was heartbreaking. I spent many days sitting on the bathroom floor crying because I had negative test, and we decided to finally reach out and to our doctor and forgo fertility treatments. And so we started doing fertility treatments and going through IVF. And we did our first round of IVF. That round consisted of so many needles, so
Mm.
many different kinds of medications to get my body ready. There were several times that they said, "This is going to be the month." And then they'd call and say, "Nope, your eggs aren't ready. It's not the month.
Mm.
We'll try again next
So that
time."
was just that was just about harvesting eggs so that you could
Hmm.
then later use them for in vitro fertilization. I mean, let me pause here for just 1 second. I've known lots of couples and certainly women that have struggled with infertility issues. And I just don't think I've ever known anybody that wants a child more than somebody who is struggling through this, willing to put your body, your psychology. It's so torturous to mind, heart, and body to go through this. And so there's this craving. You wanted a child really
Yes,
badly. Let's just say it
desperately.
that way.
We
So
desperately
then,
wanted a child.
so then in 2018, tell me about that.
We did our first round of IVF, and
Mhm.
they were able to get my eggs, and then we had several embryos, and then my body was finally ready to implant one of those embryos, um, and it turned out to be successful, and we fell pregnant with our baby girl, Isabella Grace, um,
Mm.
and it was the happiest time in my life. We just were so beyond happy, and our dream had finally came true. I mean, we thought at least it had, and
And then things changed.
and then
Tell
things
tell me
changed.
about that. And first of all, Jessica, you and I spoke privately about this, but I too have lost I lost a pregnancy at 6 months, was pregnant with twins. The anticipation of having a child and then having a disappointment is just such it's a heartbreak like no other. And I kind of consider you a new woman in my life, as a member of a club that nobody wanted to be a member of.
No,
That there's this secret society of women and couples that have lost children before they're born, and it's a tragedy. It's just such a heartbreak. So tell me what happened with Isabella.
um, so everything was going great. She was such a healthy baby, and then at 18 weeks
In
and three
utero.
days in utero. Yes, I'm sorry. I always call her my baby in utero. She was growing well, and at 18 weeks and 3 days, I went to my maternal fetal medicine appointment. I had to see high risk doctors, so it was time for me to see them, and I had informed them that I had had some cramping and some things going on that I wasn't sure was, you know, right. And so I asked them to do an exam, and when they did, they found out that I was already 3 centimeters dilated.
Which is way too early for that to be the
Yeah,
case.
yes, and so they immediately hooked me up to a contraction monitor to see if I was having contractions, and they found out that I wasn't. And I didn't want to go home. I told them I was not going home because I wanted to opt for a surgery to place a cerclage around my cervix.
So that's essentially where they put a band around the cervix so that it stops dilating to kind of keep the baby in there.
Yeah, to try to
And
hold the
so
baby
you
in place.
you didn't want to go home. You were willing to do anything to protect this pregnancy and to
Yes.
protect this little
And
baby. And so you did. And then what?
yeah. The surgery, they couldn't tie a band around my cervix because I didn't have enough cervix for them to do so. And um, I went back to my room and I was devastated. I was just crying my eyes out because I just, in my heart, I was so scared. And then about 2 hours later, my water broke. Um, that devastated that devastated me, and I had to call my husband because he was on his way to take care of our dogs, and he was scared because we didn't know if Isabella was going to come right then or what that meant.
And at this point, if she were to be born, viability would she would not
No,
be able to live outside of your body.
no, and at this hospital, viability was 24 weeks, and so
And you were
I was only 18 weeks and 3 days when this started, and they were pushing for me to abort her from the very beginning, and I just couldn't. I
Now, I want to pause there for 1 second. When they say they weren't pushing you to have an abortion, they were saying this baby is not going to make it. It's healthier for you to end this pregnancy.
Yeah, they
I don't
they
want it to sound
just
like though you were being coerced into an abortion.
no, they just were trying to look out for me. They said my life
Right.
was the number one priority, and
So they were
I
telling you
told
that your life could be at risk.
yes, and I didn't listen at first, and I waited 2 weeks. I fought in the hospital for my daughter um, until I developed a life-threatening infection.
So you just thought if I just stay in this hospital and lay on my back and stay on bed rest, that I might be able to keep this baby inside me long enough for her to be viable. And
Yeah,
that just
I
proved
just
not to
didn't
be the
want to
case.
listen. No, I could. My heart couldn't listen to what the doctors were telling me. I, I just couldn't process it. Like the place that I was mentally, I struggled, and so I it wasn't until I had a fever and my white blood cell counts were extremely high, and they did an exam and they found that in fact, I had a life-threatening infection. And they told me that I needed to induce labor at that point.
And you knew then that to induce labor you had a child that could not live outside the body. So you knew in all probability this would be the end of your pregnancy, the end of this child. And it was a
She was only 20
life-saving,
weeks
yeah.
at that point, and
So so first of all, I'm so horribly sorry for the agony that I know that is. And what a horrible choice to have to make, to be somebody who wanted a child so, so badly, put your body and your mind and your marriage and your
yeah,
pocketbook and your time, all those things through
yeah,
so much to achieve this, and then to have it lost is a tragedy that doesn't have a name. So I'm sorry that you went through that. So ultimately they needed to induce labor.
yes. Um, my husband begged me to sign the papers, and so I finally did. I consented, and and they induced labor, and it was I was in labor for 2 hours. I labored that entire time, knowing that she wasn't going to make it, and that's just like a hormone. I just my heart was just broken, and it was so hard to push.
Well, it's hard enough to go through labor if you know that there's going to be a child at the other end of it, but to know that, and I know this particular pain, to go
Yeah,
through the physical and psychological agony of labor, knowing that there will not be a baby at the
yeah.
end of the process, is just an absolute heartbreak. So you made this choice. It was a medical choice between you, your doctor, your husband, and then life
And
goes
she
on.
was born. Yes,
So tell me, so so Isabella was born not living.
yes,
She was, what the term they used for me was fetal demise. It's a terrible term. I've never
I know.
liked that. Um, but stillborn. There's all kinds of
Yeah,
other terms, but essentially you gave birth to what looked like a perfect child, only tiny,
yeah.
and but she never breathed a breath outside of your body.
No, no, ma'am.
So, of course, your husband was there with you. On our website, we have a beautiful photograph of him consoling you and the two of you with your child.
Yes,
So, tell me then, of course, there's a grieving process. And then it was life goes on. You go back to teaching, your husband goes back
hmm
to work, and you still want a family.
yes.
So,
And we so the first thing that I had to do was have a surgery um, to where they went through abdominally and tied a transabdominal cerclage. So it's a cerclage that's at the bottom of your uterus and at the top of your cervix, and it's permanent
so they were making it so that you could possibly conceive again.
and
Okay.
carry a child full term. Um, And so after I had that surgery in August of 2019, we started IVF again. Um, we did a second round and it wasn't successful. The embryo didn't take. And then our third round resulted in our beautiful baby boy that we have, who is 2 years old. Um, and
Tell
the
me his
tax
name. It's so
stated
adorable.
Brantley. Brantley
Brentley.
William is his name.
So all of this work, I want to share the happy ending, and then I want to share the unhappy ending too. So first of all, your little boy is fine and
Yes,
healthy and happy and
yes.
wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank
So
you.
people that wanted babies so badly become very doting parents, and so I'm
Yes,
sure he's
he is our
very
world.
adored.
Yes.
I'm sure he's very adored. So in you have a family, you have your son, and in light of what happened with the Supreme Court the recent decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, you chose to post your story about Isabella online. And that's why I wanted to talk with you. The tragedy that you have endured is hard enough. It's just full of pain and anguish enough. How did you get through it? What kind of resources did you and your husband use to endure this loss and to move on through and to stay dedicated? Because a lot of people would have given up after all of that.
Yeah, it was hard. We knew that we had to rely on each other or else we were going to fall apart. And he was a huge support system for me. Like he just was always there for me, no matter what. He's just very caring and very loving, as you could tell in that picture. Like he just was
Yeah.
my rock at that time. And I
Well, so
also,
it sounds like getting through it with each other.
yes, in therapy, I needed therapy. And I still go to therapy and talk about my daughter. And it, it just, her death doesn't just stop. And I, I wonder about her all the time and how she would be growing up now and who she would be and things like that. So therapy, family, friends, and teaching. Teaching is I love it and I love my kids so much and they keep me going.
Oh, wonderful. Well, so after posting this online, I'm guessing, and tell me if I'm guessing this wrong, um, Jessica, but I'm guessing that you thought when you posted your story that you would get a lot of support from all kinds of people, but that wasn't what happened. What happened as a result of your posting this story?
I got a lot of hate, a lot of cruelty, a lot of backlash. I was wished death. I was told my daughter was better off dead. Um, I was told, I hope you never have children. I was called a murderer, disgusting, disgusting murderer. Um, and there's lots of other things that people, just hateful things people have said to me. And that's been hard.
Well, and I don't want to give those voices any credence at all. While I have respect for people who choose a pro life stance because of their own spiritual beliefs and that they can act on that in their lives as well, they should. Everyone should act according to her own ethic around such things. It's hard for me to respect somebody who says that they're pro life and then they attack a mother who's lost a child. It's hard for me to respect somebody who claims to be pro-life and wishes death on you. The incongruence and hypocrisy of that to me nullifies any argument. And I'm a strong believer in a separation of church and state and personal freedom, body autonomy, medical privacy. And so those seem like the deepest, most personal decisions to make, and you and your husband in accordance with your doctors made that choice, not without consequence, not without sorrow, but you made that choice. They couldn't respect that choice for you, where it sounds like if they had chosen differently, If you knew of a mother in the same circumstances who said, I simply can't, it's against my values, and she were to have passed during that, it would be a tragedy. But my guess is that how would you feel about her choice?
I mean, I believe every woman has a choice. And I believe that I should respect their opinion and their belief just as well as somebody should at least be respectful of mine. And even if that means just scrolling by and not saying anything at all.
Right,
Um,
right. Yeah,
so,
have your judgment, keep it to yourself. Is that
right.
the
Yes.
so so here you are, a young mom, or a
Yes.
mom of a young one, I should
Yes.
say. You've got your little boy you're raising, and your teaching that you're doing, and your husband in the military, and all the things that normally have. And then you're getting this kind of extra pile of judgment and scolding. And um, I don't want to call it threatening because it doesn't sound as though somebody threatened to do anything to you specifically, but menacing behavior, menacing words at the very least.
Yes, it's been very hard. And I actually did have one threatening message to where he said
Mm.
that he wished that I lived closer because he would get his female friends to take care of me, basically. And it's just disheartening. And I've cried and cried over these messages, but the outpouring of love and support that I've received from others have way surpassed the hate that I've gotten. Like I never would have believed my story would have went viral, and I didn't believe I would have so many women reaching out to me and telling me thank you for sharing my story, because by sharing my story I shared theirs in a way.
Well, and Jessica, your particular story is one kind of choice issue. When we're dealing with the issue of pro-choice, yours was a medical choice because of the danger to the life of the mother and the likely inviability that Isabella could have ever lived outside of your body because it just wasn't going to be possible. So that's one kind of choice. And I don't want to imply to any listener that I think that's the only time that a woman has
Right.
has a choice. I think that these are the deeply personal decisions that one makes with herself, with her medical team, with her partner if she has one, with her God if she chooses to have a relationship in that way. So yours is just one of the choice, and it's one of the most obvious ones to most people, even many people that are pro life. I've never liked the term pro life. I'm very pro life. I'm very pro baby. I'm very pro family and all of those things, but I'm also pro choice. So, how are you getting through now? So, it sounds as though the people reaching out to you in a positive way has done something. Has there been some healing for you in that and some restoration of
Yes.
health?
I having people reach out and tell me thank you and how much my story means to them, and just being able to talk about Isabella and having other people say her name, like I can't
Mm,
express to anyone like how much that means to me. And to hear her name, to see her name, to know that others heard her story, like that to me is so therapeutic.
mm,
Because in a way, my daughter is getting to live on through that, and um, and that's what I go off of.
mm. Well, you and your husband have shown yourselves to be devoted to each other and devoted to your little boy. And I wish you every single kind of health and happiness as you continue as a family. I'm sorry for your loss, and I'm also buoyed in a way by the fact that you're getting more people reaching out to you with thanks and gratitude than you are with scorn and ridicule. You know, I keep reminding myself, I'm going to confess something here, and that is that I've always believed that there are more good people in the world than bad. In recent years, it's been hard to keep that belief because bad behavior has been on such grotesque display, from violence to dishonesty to corruption to all kinds of terrible things. And certainly attacks on someone like you make it hard for me to believe that there are more good people in the world than bad. But I always have to remind myself that while there's more good than bad in the world, bad has better publicity.
Mm-hmm.
Bad gets on the news, bad gets amplified in social media. And I think it's worth reminding ourselves that the telling of your story, yes, it did bring some bad results, and I'm so sorry for that. And seems like it brought a lot more good.
It did. It, it,
So
it
I'm
really did.
so I'm very glad to be sharing your story further here for listeners.
And I thank you for that.
Oh, well, I'm honored, truly. I wish you every kind of joy and every kind of health and every kind of happiness in your next
Thank,
chapters. Thanks for
thank
sharing
you
your
so much.
story with me.
Thank you.
I'm in such deep admiration of Jessica for sharing her story, first online and publicly for the purpose of inspiring others, even though it got her some flack. It also got her a lot of positive feedback and support too. And I want to emphasize that. In the last part of my conversation with her, I talked about that. It has been tough to have a positive outlook on human beings lately because there's been just so much awful behavior, so much cruelty and dishonesty and violence and just ugly human behavior. But it's really vital for me to remember that for each of those horrible stories, there are thousands of invisible good ones. Now, let me say this though. That doesn't take away from the fact that I'm legitimately angry that rights are being taken away, that we're turning back the clock, that we're stripping half of America's population of rights that I believe to be their own. Rebecca Traister wrote a book called Good and Mad. And that's how I feel about this. I feel mad. I feel deep, deep anger. And I'm going to use it for good. That's my dedication. I'm not just going to just fume and let it eat me. I want to let it be fuel for me to activate in private ways and perhaps in public ways too. That's my extra bloom. Wherever you are, however you are dealing with what you're angry about, I hope that you are using it as fuel, as, dare I say, fertilizer in the garden to bring about the blooms. Thanks for listening to the Morning Glory Project. Take good care.